Hey guys, I'm your host Smitha. Welcome everybody. I have Nelson Tressler with me today. His early life was filled with trauma, struggle, and court trials. But although his childhood was something that many of us couldn't fathom going through, he was able to turn his life around in a positive way. He set goals, kept a positive mindset, and stayed accountable to his actions. He has developed the I Got Smarter app to help others to do the same. One of his favorite quotes is, "Never be ashamed of a scar. It simply means that you are stronger than what you have tried to hurt you." It is his vision to make this world a better place, one person and one inspirational goal at a time. He believes goals not only change the current generation, they also change the generations that follow. That sentence really, really hit me. Thank you so much for being here and sharing your story today. Please welcome
Yeah,
to the show.
thank you. Appreciate you having me on.
Thank you. So please go ahead and tell us like what your story is and where you are today, how this journey came through, and why is this important, this work to you today?
Sure. Yeah, I've got quite the origin story. My mom became pregnant with me when she was 15 years old. And while she was pregnant with me, her father, who was the local trash collector in a small town, drove into the town square. There he spotted two police officers. He stuck a gun out the window and opened fire on those police officers, killing one and wounding another. And he was eventually captured and brought to stand trial, where he was facing the death penalty. And my mom got up on the stand during his trial and testified to the jury that the reason that her father had shot and killed the police officer was that the police officer had raped her and she was now pregnant with me. And that testimony worked. My grandfather's first trial ended in a hung jury. The next trial, they did take the death penalty off the table, and my grandfather was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, in which he spent the next 40 years in prison, never being released, dying in prison, leaving behind my mom. She is one of 15 children,
Wow.
and now me in this small town to kind of deal with all of those circumstances. Um, my life didn't get any easier after that. If any of you guys have ever lived in a small town, you know that everybody kind of knows your business. And now with what my grandfather had done and what my mom had testified to, now definitely was labeled in that small town. My mom eventually met a man when she was 21. Um, he eventually became my stepfather, but come to find out that he was an alcoholic and physically and emotionally abused me and my mom almost on a daily basis. Uh, Eventually, my mom had four more children. And because of the lifestyle that was being lived in our home, a lot of their basic care needs fell upon me, including, waking up at 2 in the morning to, you know, help them, feed them, do whatever needed to be done. And because of this lifestyle that I was living, I almost hardly ever went to school. I remember in the fourth grade looking down at my report card and anxiously wanting to see who my fifth grade homeschooled, homeroom teacher was going to be. And I looked at my report card and I had straight F's, and I saw the fact that I would be repeating the fourth grade. I shouldn't have been surprised. I was probably absent more than 60 days that year. And the next year, and I was placed into special ed. I couldn't read, I couldn't write, I still can't spell. Come to find out that, I have dyslexia. And so that's kind of the way my life went until one night. My stepfather was walking home drunk from a bar, and there was somebody else who was driving home drunk from that bar, and they ended up hitting and killing him. And it was at this time that my mom had dropped out of school in the eighth grade. She'd never worked outside of the home. And as hard as the life that she has lived to this point, losing my stepfather, regardless of, how he treated us, pretty much left her without any hope. And it was at this time that she decided that she was going to take her own life. And fortunately, She was not successful, but whenever she was released from the hospital, she determined that she was no longer going to be able to take care of all five of the kids on her own. So it was
How
at
old were
that
you
time that I
at this
ended up going to live with my grandmother, who was the wife of the man who shot and killed the police officer.
How old were
And
you at this point of time?
I was around 10, 11, 12, 11,
Okay.
maybe 11 years old at this time.
Mm,
And, growing up in my mom's house, we never had food. It was a crapshoot whether or not the lights would turn on. But for the first time, when I went to live with my grandmother, there was always food there. I didn't have to worry about my stepfather coming home drunk and beating me or my mom.
yeah.
And, and I didn't have to wake up at 2 in the morning to help with crying babies.
Mm,
And the one rule, even though education wasn't a priority in my Graham's family, the one rule was you were going to go to school. And,
mm,
with having 15 kids, that's probably was her only,
yeah.
time to ever have any time to herself is when the kids went to school. So as I started to go to school, I realized, as I put days in, together and started to go to class, I realized I wasn't stupid. I just hadn't been putting forth the effort.
Yeah.
And then one day a counselor came from the local university and they started to talk about, the things that you needed to do to get into college.
Mm,
And kind of a light bulb went off in my head. And I thought to myself, what what would happen if I could graduate from college, and what kind of life would I live then? And if you've ever told yourself something that's going to be hard, you always have those voices in the back of your head that just start screaming at you all the reasons that you shouldn't even attempt that.
sure.
And I remember thinking, Nelson, you're in special ed, you can't read, you can't write, you can't spell. Of my mom's family, those 15 kids, only two had ever graduated from high school. None had even attended college.
Oh,
And, so I'm thinking to myself, I'll be lucky to graduate high school, let alone college. But I determined that day that I was going to go for it and at least try. And eventually, 4 years, 12 years after I set that goal, four different universities, 4 years in the Air Force to get the GI Bill, to get money to go to school, I eventually became that first person in my family to graduate from
gosh.
college.
Awesome.
And yeah, and that was when I kind of realized, geez, if somebody like me who came from where I came from, if I could accomplish this by setting a goal, even though I barely knew what a goal was at this stage of my life, I thought to myself, what else could I do? And that's when I became obsessed with goals and personal development. And that's when I started to set goals and personal development in my life and really have used that to design a life that I couldn't have even imagined, growing up in the environment that I lived. And, here I am next month, I'm going to be celebrating my 25th wedding anniversary to my wife. And,
Congratulations to you both.
we're raising three awesome young men. And, just like the quote that you said, I mean, that one goal in my life didn't just change my life. It changed my family's life, and it's going to change their family's lives because I was willing to move forward with that one goal. And that one goal led to so many other goals.
Congratulations to you and your wife on celebrating your
Yeah.
25th anniversary.
Thank you. She says, it only feels like 5 minutes underwater. But
Wow. That's an amazing compliment.
I know. But no, it's been great. And I talk a lot about our marriage in my book, The Unlucky Sperm Club, and it hasn't been easy, and it's been touch and go. But we both wanted that. We both wanted that goal. We both wanted that in our families, and because of that, we had that clear vision. We got through some very hard times, and I think that's what a lot of people need to realize is they look at some people who have some sort of success in their lives and they kind of think that it was easy.
Yeah.
And that's why I love reading biographies of successful people, because what you do is they kind of pull back that curtain on what it took to get there. And what you realize is there was always those times that were struggles, and times where they almost lost everything, or the business failed, or their family
Yeah,
situation. And there's always those things, but they just found a way to get through it. And that's what my book talks about, and that's kind of what I'm trying to live my life, is just, you got to get through those hard times, and we're all going to have them, and that's just the way life is. And if you find a way to persevere through those, you can get through to the good times.
definitely, definitely. And that's the same intent that I have this podcast today. I
Awesome.
don't want to just show the people like thinking that happy ending. People just see that outside and think like, oh, what's wrong with that person? They're like really happy. But the inner work and the effort that we put is like so much to get to the place where we are. That's the
Yeah.
reason I was mentioning before I started recording. I want to show the pain that you have gone through. It's just not like, okay, this happened to me, and yes, I moved there and I'm happy here. That's not going to happen to anybody. This is years of work that you put through.
Yeah, and in my book, I
Years.
go into a lot of those stories, of growing up, and I'll share a story with you, kind of growing up. When I was in eighth grade, it was the first dance that you actually went and picked up your date.
Hmm.
And so I was excited, and I knew this girl, and I, asked her to go to the dance. Didn't never talked to her before, but thought she was cute. And so I asked her, and she said yes. And, the day comes to go pick her up and take her. And, my parents didn't have a car, so my cousin drove me, and he's 18 years old. And I get in the house, and I could tell the family's really cold towards me. And that finally they ask, who's driving you to the dance? And I say, oh, it's my cousin John. And then it was just like, totally quiet. And they went, and they's like, okay, we're going to go check on, my date. And they went back, and it was a few long minutes. And then they came back and said, oh, she has to leave a half an hour early because we have a family thing. And I'm like, well, I can bring her back home. It's no problem. They're like, oh no, it's on the way. It'll just be easier. And anyhow, we go out, and, her dad's taking pictures more of me and my cousin putting her in the car than, us standing there. And, come to find out, I ended up dating this girl for a few years after this. And they opened up to me and said, we weren't going to let Megan go with you because we knew who your family was, and heard the rumors. And come to find out that her dad followed me and my cousin to the dance to make sure that we got her there, because they were fearful that we were going to pull over and rape her.
Yeah.
And then the only way that they were going to let her go with me is if they could come and pick her up early. They weren't going to trust us to bring her home. So that was just getting a way for them to get there and pick her up. But there were things like that growing up because of, that small town, and everybody knowing who you were, and kind of what was going on. And so, you have to get through those tough times. And and just like that, I mean, I ended up dating that girl for a long time, and that family became my second family. And I loved those guys. And you're going to go through things like that. And one of my favorite philosophies that's in my I got smarter program is, things only have the meaning that you're willing to give them.
Yes.
And the story in my book, I moved away. I joined the Air Force when I was 19 years old to get money to go to school. And I never went back to that small town because I was running from everything that kind of I represented back there, and my family's name represented. And I never told anybody about the circumstances of my grandfather and all of that, except for my wife before I married her. I figure she deserved to know that. But besides that, I never told my kids. I never told my friends. I was running from it. And every time I thought of those circumstances, it weakened me. And then, I was fortunate enough to exit a few businesses and thinking about what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. And I thought, you know what, I want to help other people, change their lives and realize that they have so much potential that they're not realizing. And, like I said, I've been obsessed with goals and personal development for 25 years and used it in every area of my life. And I started to reflect upon my story and kind of what it represented and why I was, why I live that life. And, I started to give it a different meaning. I started to say, you know what, I lived that life. I made it out, I made it out of there, and here I sit. And maybe I went through that so that I could share that story and inspire others to know that you're not a victim of circumstance. You're a product of your choices.
Yeah,
And as soon as I started thinking that way and started giving those happenings a different meaning, I started to gain strength from it. And now when I tell that story, it comes from a position of strength and not weakness. And
definitely.
that's what we all have that ability to do with really anything that happens to us. And I know there's some hard things that happen to people out there, but I really truly believe that if you dig deep enough and hard enough and look at it creatively enough, that you can give almost anything that happens to you a positive meaning and gather strength from it, as opposed to allowing it to weaken you.
Definitely, definitely. When you're talking about the goals, I wanted to ask an interesting question. Apart from the first goal that you had, like going to the college and getting the degree, you might have done like a lot of goals, you might have achieved a lot of goals. What was the toughest goal that you have achieved after your college degree, and why do you think it is toughest?
Oh, you know what? I think sometimes the toughest is marriage. I think a lot of times,
Definitely.
especially us, we were raised totally differently, and we tend to look at things differently.
Yeah,
And it's you have great times and that, but there's always those one or two times where you don't see eye to eye.
yeah.
But you just realize that it's worth it and this is what you want. So I mean, that is a goal. One of my goals is to be married 50 years. And I'm halfway there. And there's a lot of things that go into that. I mean, wanting to stay married and being healthy enough to get there and all those things. So that's my biggest goal, and it's my most important goal. And if you know, I don't want to fail at that. So I put more pressure on myself doing that than any other goal, because that's the most important to me.
Why do you think that you're putting pressure on that?
I think a lot of it probably has to do with the family that I came from and the lifestyle that was being lived there, and knowing how, difficult that was, and not wanting my children to have to deal with some of that. And, also maybe the fear in the back of my head is, the stepfather that I got was not great. And, I don't want to kind of put my kids in any of that situation if my wife would remarry somebody else. And I'm sure there's a lot of stuff in my brain there that is,
Definitely.
really striving, and you have that fear in there. But yeah, I don't know. A psychiatrist would have a ball with me, I'm sure.
Yes, yes. Apart from the impacts that you had from your early childhood, is there anything that in your life, like this is what something really bad happened to me personally, and there is nothing related to my past with it?
uh Really bad. Well, okay, yeah. I mean, so I started a business, a children's learning center. So children's daycares, and we had a chain of 6 of them. And I wasn't operating them at first. I was just an investor, me and my father-in-law. And come to find out that our business operating partner was embezzling money from us. And it was during the Great Recession, 2007, 2008. And we ended up, finding out that he had embezzled almost, $1 million from us or so. Uh, but we had to get him out of the business. And when we got him out of the business, I took over operating it.
Mm,
And a few years later, just when things were starting to go okay, I had hired a man, kind of against my intuition. And because men kind of have a target on them when it comes to daycares.
yeah.
But, and this is in my book as well, and the details are in there. But come to find out, one day I get a call that the news stations are out in front of my daycare, and that my director had been arrested for molesting 2 of his family friends. And they were out in front of my daycares. And filming that. And like I said, it was the rough economy anyhow. And anyhow, it was a long process, and our enrollment dropped by half overnight, and we were barely making it. And it was just, one of the hardest things I've ever went to. I mean, a lot of it was, guilt for hiring a man against my intuition and thinking that he had hurt some of the children in my daycare, and what had I done. And fortunately, for that, I mean, he didn't hurt any children in the daycares.
Mm.
It was family friends that he had been with, and horrible for that. And he eventually went to prison, and I think he'll serve the rest of his life there. But that was one of the hardest things that I had ever went through. One, with the guilt, and then two, with trying to save those businesses. After that, I mean, I don't know many things that could be worse than having a child molester running a daycare. And I saw no way of how I was ever going to recover from that in a good economy, let alone a bad economy. So yeah, I would say that ranks up there pretty high. The things that I've realized is, my book is called The Unlucky Sperm Club, and one thing that I realize is you don't just get lucky, you create your own luck.
Yes.
And I also always believe that there's always a choice.
Mm.
And as I've kind of gone through this business of I Got Smarter, a little bit about this is we designed an app that helps people finally achieve their goals. Because what we realize is it's not a knowledge problem whenever you want to accomplish something and accomplish your goals. It's an execution problem. We just don't do what we know we're supposed to do. And that's what I designed this entire app around. Is it's got a self-assessment program. So it talks to you and makes sure that you're going to be pursuing the goals that are important to you. But one of the great things is, and I think this helps people in every area of life, but you can invite a success partner through the app to
Mm.
help you kind of stay accountable to yourself and stay focused. And you guys are success partners, and you help each other. And through the app, I can see if you've done your morning ritual, or I can see if you didn't. And if you did, I'll give you kudos, keep up the good work, have a great day. If you didn't, I can say, hey, let's get that morning ritual done, and plan this awesome day that you're about to have. And just somebody's watching you, somebody has your back, and somebody is out there wanting you to succeed. And I think that helps in every area of life, whether and this app helps you in every area of goals. I know a lot of people think of goals and think of business and financial, but just like we talked about, I mean, there's relationship goals, and there's spiritual goals, and there's lifestyle goals, and there's health goals. So this app will help you with every type of goal that you want to set. We don't tell you what goals to set. We
Mm.
just give you that program and that app
Oh,
that
okay.
will actually help you see that goal through to the end.
I mean, I know that you were keeping your goals, and is that the motivation to start that kind of an app?
Yeah, I kind of became known as the goal guide in my little group. And you talked a little bit about it, where friends were always coming up to me and asking me, hey, I'd give talks on goals, and I just loved it. And it was just that thing that I would rather talk about goals and personal development and the potential people have, and more than anything. And I started to do that, and people would come up to me and they'd say, hey, I really need help with goals. And I'd sit down with them and I'd say, okay, and I pretty much used every program out there over the last 20 years. I read all the books and
Hmm.
subscribed to the magazines. And, every morning I was going through my goals. And so I would help these people sit down and teach them how to write a proper goal, and teach them how to, make it specific and measurable, and, help them. And then I'd see them a couple weeks later, and I'd be all excited for them because I knew I gave them some good information. I knew they had good goals. And I'd say, how are those goals coming? And they're like, oh yeah, I got to get back on track with that. And it was like a kick in the gut. It was like, geez, I just spent 3 or 4 hours with you writing down the goals and doing all that, and you couldn't stick with it for 2 or 3 weeks. And what I realized was they needed that accountability partner. And I put that in quotes because accountability kind of gets a bad rap, and we don't look at accountability at I Got Smarter the same way as a lot of people do. But but I became their accountability partner. And what I realized was they did a lot better knowing that somebody else was watching. And here I was thinking that I was pretty good at goals and pretty good at sticking to them. But as soon as I had to report back to somebody else, I found myself doing even better.
Yeah.
And I did that for 2 or 3 or 4 people. And eventually it got to be where all I was doing was helping other people stay accountable to their goals. And my goals were kind of falling by the wayside. So I ended up thinking, you know what, I'm going to start a group, and we can rotate partners and really work together. And that's after I did that, everybody, it was all areas, these were successful people, and doctors and lawyers and business owners, and also, people who were struggling, finding a job. So it was everybody, but across the board, everybody was doing well. And when I really knew I was onto something was when I would bump into one of these men's wives, and they would come up to me and say, "You can never stop this group no matter what you do. My husband is a different man. He's thoughtful, and he's always thinking of how to make me happy and doing things around the house, and he's just so focused. You can't stop this group." And then eventually everybody, all the wives of the men who were in my group started their own goal group because they saw the huge benefit of it. And, that was 7, 8 years ago. And I kind of thought, you know what, the world needs that. And then when it kind of came to the point where I sold a couple businesses and trying to figure out what I wanted to do with the rest of my life, I thought about that group and how well it worked. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to sit down and write this program out. And that led to designing an app, and that led to designing another app. So I'm just really passionate about. I know how it can change lives, no matter where you're at. No matter if you're struggling to pay the bills, or you're just looking to retire early, or you're struggling in relationships, or you're not living the lifestyle. Whatever you need help with, goals will help you get there. And this program, I Got Smarter, will help you reach those goals.
Let me ask a question related to the goal setting itself, related to that app. Let's just say for a normal person, normal circumstances like a personality development or like personal development related to the jobs, all these things, these are all like under your control, and
Yep.
you have to like really enhance yourself, or like try to learn new skills, or like all these things are within your control. Let's just say finances. You might not be able to increase your income, but you can control your expenditure. However, that controllability is something that not a lot of people have.
Yeah.
And if
I
somebody
mean,
wants to set a goal in that part, how do you suggest them they can go ahead with that?
well, I think self-discipline is one of the hardest things for all of us, right? But when you set a goal and you have a crystal clear vision of, not only what you want to accomplish, but a crystal clear vision of how to get there, I think that definitely helps. But the I Got Smarter is actually an acronym, and that I stands for the individual staring back at you in the mirror. So everything hinges on the type of person that you are. And what our number one priority is becoming that best version of yourself. Because in order to achieve a goal, you have to become that
Yeah.
person that can achieve that goal. So that's the whole self-development part of it, is how can I reach my potential? How can I become the version of myself that I know is out there that can achieve these goals and live the life that I want to live? And when you're working on that every single day, that starts to happen. Another cool thing that I think is in our program is we use what we call an alter ego. And
Yes.
we design this alter ego, our superhero, that perfect version of ourselves that always makes the right decision. We design that. And whenever you're struggling with something, or you're not sure what you need to do, we ask our alter ego. Mine's name is Fred. And, Fred makes all the right decisions. And, my family even knows that Fred always makes the right decisions, because when Nelson comes home and maybe he's not making all the right decisions, their favorite comeback to me is, hey, Dad, can Fred come out and play? Because they know Fred wouldn't yell at him. Fred would be patient, and Fred would, be understanding, and Nelson isn't always that. And what I found is the more Fred type choices that I make, Nelson and Fred start to merge together, and the line between them isn't as distinct. And then what I've realized is, as you continue to do this month after month and year after year, that version of your alter ego actually gets to be, larger, and you start to reach even more potential. And eventually Nelson is way past that first version of where Fred was, and he's working towards becoming that even better version of who Fred is today.
What do you say your biggest strength is from all these?
Uh, Determination. I hate to fail, and I fail a lot, but I also don't quit. I think, when I set a goal, I make sure that I'm crystal clear on that goal. I make sure that that's exactly what I want to do, and then I don't quit. I mean, I get through it, because I know, life throws you curveballs. And, I always think of that story of the guy who was a gold miner in Colorado, and he dug for 3 or 4 or 6 months. I don't remember how long, but he ended up just giving up, and sold his mine and went back, and I think he sold shoes or something, and he sold the mine to a guy, and he came in and he dug for 4 more feet and ended up hitting the biggest gold strike in Colorado. And I think so many of us end up quitting right before we're about to hit that breakthrough.
Yes.
And if you're clear on that, you want to accomplish it. If you're clear on that goal, then don't quit. I mean, you'll eventually get there. I truly believe that if you have enough time, enough energy, and enough focus, you can accomplish any goal that you set out to accomplish.
There will be some people where I have seen personally, some people think they wanted to change, like from the worst parts of their lives. Let's say, for example, if they are in domestic violent relationships, they
Mhm.
wanted to have that change, but they don't know how to even start with it. And some people take that as if that is, as you mentioned, guilt, shame, and everything, and feel that that is what their life is going to be. They don't even want to make an attempt. What kind of a suggestion that you give to these kind of people, where first part is like they don't even want to think about the light, there is
Yeah.
nothing that's going to change my life, and some people wanted to change their life but they don't know where to start, or like they don't make the effort to start.
Right. Well, the first thing is, there's only one place you can start, where you're at, right? You have to start where you're at. And the problem that so many people have is they want to wait for the perfect circumstances to start. They want to, it's like sitting at the end of a long street, and there's a bunch of traffic lights, and you want to wait till every single one of those traffic lights turns green before you start on your journey. And that's not the way it works. I mean, when you're working on a journey, and you're working on a goal, and change in your life, it's a lot of it is like walking through fog. When you're walking through fog, you can only see so far. But what happens when you take one step, you can see a little bit further,
Yep.
and another step, and you can see a little bit further that you couldn't see if you stayed put. So I'm all about, one, time is our greatest resource. Don't waste a second of it, a minute of it. Get going, because every day, every second is a gift. And if you're in a situation that you don't want to be in, absolutely don't wait another day. Don't wait another second. Start the process of either fixing it or getting away from it. Um, you know, do what you need to do where you're at. And just like I said, we don't have a knowledge problem. Chances are, what you need to do, or at least one thing that you can do right now that will get you a little bit closer. And so do that. And what you'll be amazed that the other things that you need to do in order to accomplish what you're looking to accomplish will show themselves. Or, maybe it's about gaining knowledge. Maybe you don't have the knowledge, then your first step is to gain the knowledge. But don't just stay there. A lot of people get stuck, it's paralysis by analysis. Like they want to look at everything from every different angle, and they end up doing nothing.
Yep.
I'm kind of a ready, fire, aim guy. Like I just go. Like when I know I want to do something, I don't wait for all the lights to turn green. I don't wait for me to have a perfect, you know, uh, everything, every T crossed and I dotted. I go for it. And a lot of times I make mistakes and I have to backtrack a little bit, but it's two steps forward and maybe one step back, but I'm still making progress. And another philosophy at I Got Smarter is we're looking for progress, not perfection.
Yes.
And as long as you can kind of set your mind on that you're gaining some progress, and not worry about the perfection part of it, you're going to eventually get to your destination.
How do you actually define success in your journey?
You know what? Happiness. I mean, being happy, I think, is success, and there's so much balled up into that. I mean, there's some things that would happen in my life, uh, that I would chalk up to not being successful. And I know a lot of people look at bank accounts and businesses and things like that, and money, I think, only intensifies who you already are. If you're miserable and you get more money, now you just have more money to be miserable. And so, the one thing is another part of our program of I Got Smarter is we give gratitude every day,
Yeah.
because what we find is if you're not happy with what you have, chances are you're not going to be happy with what you receive. We're not saying be, satisfied. Gratitude and being satisfied aren't the same thing. We're always striving to reach our potential and do the things that we want to do, but we also want to show gratitude for the things that we already have. And whenever you can do that, I think you're going to be happy, and you're going to enjoy the ride, and you're also going to create more success because you're already happy and you're not miserable, and always seeking for those things that you don't have, and being miserable until you get them. And then what you find out is those things aren't going to bring you happiness. It's that attitude of gratitude, that's going to bring happiness into your life.
If you can go back and change one thing in your life, what would you choose to change and why?
um wow, that's a tough question. And I wasn't always the best husband. I think a lot of times, whenever I first got married, I kind of envisioned the family that I wanted to have because of the family I came from. And so I worked really hard at work, and I felt like I was pretty successful in giving my wife and family the lifestyle that you know uh, was good. And then I would come home and kind of hold those standards to my wife, and I would expect my wife, my Stepford wife, to have my three boys, at a 7-course meal, and they're all be, in their little suits and sitting down and having that, TV family. And I would come home, and my wife was struggling. She had 3 active young boys, and I'd come home, and they'd have food on their faces, and the house wouldn't be as clean as I wanted to, and food wouldn't be ready. And then I would be saying, I'm doing my part, I want you to do your part. And I really had those unrealistic expectations. But where it really started to change was when I traded in those expectations for appreciation. And I really started to focus on how wonderful my wife was. I mean, everyone else thought she was so wonderful. And the reason is they were just, they were looking at how great she was. And I was looking at all the things that, the expectations that weren't being met. But when I switched that and started looking at all the things that I truly appreciated about her, it was a huge difference in our marriage.
When you talk about goals so much, what is your next goal, like a short term goal? And what is your biggest goal that you planned out for next upcoming years?
Yeah, well, 50 year wedding anniversary is definitely what I'm shooting
Really?
for. But With this business, and I got smarter. I really want to get it out there to as many people as I can, because I know how life changing it is, and not only life changing, generational changing. And you said, our goal at I Got Smarter is to change the world, one person and one inspiring goal at a time. And the way that we're going to do that is we're going to change the individual's world. We all live in our own little world, and that's what I want to change. And when we can change that through our program, then we can change the world, looking at that one individual. And so that's what I wake up every morning, fired up to do, and love coming to work and getting this message out there, because I know what a difference it's going to make in their lives, in their families' lives, and their families' lives.
As you mentioned that last sentence, even I told before, like that was really like really nice, and it hit me like one person change is not just that person's change. It's like the generational change starts from that person. It's just
Yeah.
not that one person anymore.
Yeah, and a lot of times it's a matter of setting those goals and breaking that chain that has been perpetual through families, and it's just gotten carried over from one family member to the next generation to the next generation. And goals can change that, and then all of a sudden you're passing down great habits and great things to the next generation. And that's what I want to do. So there's not any, there's less people out there who have to deal with the things that I had to deal with as a youth, generations from now. And they won't even know that why they're not doing it. It's because grandpa set a goal or grandma set a goal, 60, 70 years ago to become a better version of herself. And because of that, they're living a great lifestyle because of what got passed down. That's what I want to accomplish with the rest of my life.
You might have done a lot of shows or like your book. Your book, of course, will have details about everything that you have gone through all through your life.
Yeah.
But through the shows that you have done, or like the interviews that you have given, or any stage shows that you might, is there anything that you haven't specifically spoke about? Any area that you haven't covered anywhere? You might have not got an opportunity to cover that, or like any other circumstances that might have happened.
Uh, well, I think, like today, every Thursday I do on my page, Nelson Tressler, I do Thankful Thursday.
Hmm.
And I my book got released, and in my book I talk about with Christmas, the one year that the only thing that my mom could afford to give me was a stocking, an old hunting sock, not a nice red stocking that you see on TV, but a hunting sock. And it was had an orange in it. It's had some hard candy and a few Matchbox cars. And I talk about it in my book that was one of the most memorable gifts that I ever received, because I knew that was all that my mom could give me. And somebody read my book, and they sent me a package with a stocking with an orange and some Matchbox cars and some hard candy. And it just hit me so hard, because those are the types of things that just keep you going, to realize that you're making a difference. And just considerate people who are willing to go through that and encourage you and kind of give you those kudos, things like that. I encourage other people on that Thankful Thursday to do that same thing, to encourage those people, because you never know who needs it. And be that light in other people's lives. And that's what I'm trying to do. But I mean, we can all do that in our own little worlds that we live in.
You were giving speeches about goals.
Mhm.
if if somebody asks you like a random like me right now, if I ask you like, okay, can you explain something about your goals, not specifically, that's okay, not
Sorry.
specifically about that's fine. Not specifically about your goals, but a speech about a goal or like setting goals, would you be able to like talk few minutes about it, like how you expect somebody, not expect, like how you suggest or guide somebody to set their goals up, and of course achieving them or like reaching to those goals is like personal interest on reaching them. But how do you actually like suggest or motivate them to create those goals?
Well, the first thing, I mean, I would say is go out and get this awesome app. It's called I Got Smarter, and it'll lead you, it'll direct you through, the whole goal setting process. But the first thing that we do in our program is we do what we call a self assessment. And
Hmm.
that self assessment, it takes about an hour. But you're one, there's gratitude in there, and there's designing your alter ego and what that best version of yourself is. And there's making sure that the goal that you want to go after, is the true goals that you want to go after, and that you're willing to pay the price for that. And we break the first of all, we all have a lot of goals. We only work on 3 goals at a time. And another thing that we do is we break our goals down, no matter how big they are, into a 30-day sprint,
Hmm.
because I think a lot of people have these huge goals that are a year or 5 years or even 10 years, and our mind cannot wrap around what needs to happen today. And
Yep.
like I talked about, time is our greatest resource. So we break those goals down into a 30-day sprint on what we can accomplish in the next 30 days to get closer to it. And now there's that urgency, and now there's always that crystal clear vision of what has to happen, over the next 30 days. So there's things like that. And then, that success partner, having somebody else in your corner to keep you going, because when nobody else knows that you're out there striving to do something, it's easy to not do it. And when somebody else knows about it and somebody's there to encourage you and motivate you, and you them, uh, you have a 95% better likelihood of actually achieving your goals. But yeah, there's so many different things in the I Got Smarter program that I've learned over the last 25 years that will kind of show people, how to write a proper goal. I mean, we make sure that all of our goals are positive. There's none, I want to quit this or I want to stop this. I mean, we talk about I am this person, and we talk about all of our goals as if they've already happened, because if you tell your mind that something's happened, your mind will figure out a way to make sure that it does happen. So there's so many strategies, but yeah, they're all in I Got Smarter. And the app walks you through all of this. And at the end of the hour, you'll be more clear on what goals you want to accomplish and how you're going to accomplish them than probably you've ever been in your life. Yeah, I talked about it a little bit before, but I always like to tell you, do it now. Don't wait. Don't wait till Monday. Don't wait till New Year's. I know New Year's is right around the corner, but do it right now. If you felt inspired, if you felt motivated, do it now, because that only lasts. That high of being motivated and inspired only lasts very short time. So do it now. Whatever you need to do, go take that one step, and then tomorrow take the next step, and next week and next month. And eventually what you'll find out is you've accomplished it by starting right now today.
Okay, thank you for tuning in, and you can find me on all the socials at Smitha Gunturi and the show notes for any resources mentioned. See you next week. Take care.